Welcome back to the You Never Asked podcast. I'm Meg Honnold, and I'm excited for all that Season 2 has in store as we get to know these 10 delightful individuals. If you're new here, this podcast exists to share untold stories of everyday people so that we value, learn from, and understand one another. In a busy culture that shuns any sort of inconvenience, we want to cultivate empathy and face-to-face connection. But sometimes we simply don't know how. People are not interruptions. You'll be surprised what you discover when you pause long enough to listen, which leads me to today's storyteller. Tim Coday, or Tim Co as I know him, was my music theory professor. He's the teacher in storybooks and movies, eccentric, sentimental, passionate. Once in class, he was playing us a piece of music. It sounded like any other song to me, but Tim sat with his elbow on the piano, utterly lost, and paused it to look up and slowly say with his whimsical grin, "Doesn't that just sound like the first time you fell in love?" I called Tim a while ago to finally ask for his backstory, most of which was brand new to me. I even asked him about that first love of his. Listen in.
Hello?
Hello, Tim Co.
Hi.
Hi! It's so good to hear your voice.
It's great to hear your voice.
I've been wanting to message you for quite a while because I know you have some tales up your sleeve, and I've known you for several years, but I know I've hardly scratched the surface of your story. So that's the deal. Where does the story start for you? Where was your childhood?
Okay. Well, I was born in St. Louis, Missouri. We lived there about almost 3 years before moving to a little town outside of St. Louis called St. Clair, Missouri, and that's really where I grew up.
Okay.
But it was close enough to St. Louis that I still feel St. Louis kind of is my hometown.
Yeah.
I grew up in a Christian family. My parents, their denomination was Assembly of God, which is a very, conservative kind of upbringing. My father was a church organist, and I began singing in church really before I was 3.
Oh my goodness. So was that your first exposure to the music world?
Yes. I was that little kid.
Yeah. Little kid. And
I got hooked pretty early because, we'd go to family gatherings and family reunions and these kind of things. And my dad would play and Mom would stand me up on the footstool and I would sing, and my aunts and uncles and would put quarters in my hand.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's where
hooked.
This insanity started. So, that's kind of where I got hooked. And I grew up on Southern gospel music. My parents, they love to go to the big gospel singing. And so I grew up hearing all those great gospel quartets that you kind of hear on the Gaither videos.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I grew up on that.
Sure.
All right. So, and then of course I got involved in music and theater and all that, band, when I was in school, and went to college, dropped out of college after 3 years. And I went on the road.
Oh, wow.
Played in bands, rock bands, show bands, stuff like that.
So let me stop you there. Why the dropout from college? Was it a door that opened for going on the road, or what was that?
Well, no, I kind of burned out a little bit.
Fair.
I was really, really active. I was a double major, and I never went to college to get a degree. I went to college to get good enough to do it.
Interesting. So you were a music major.
Sure, yeah. Trumpet and voice, so two majors, double major in that. And then my first gig was with a 10-piece band out of St. Louis called Spirit of St. Louis.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
And it was 5 horns, and I was the lead trumpet player.
Wow.
I was 21, and I was on the road, and it was crazy. And it was pretty wild. I went through a pretty wild phase.
What was pretty wild?
Oh, just the whole scene, because, it was 11 of us guys on the road. We had a sound and light guy with us. And we just had a we just had a ball. And most of the guys were a little bit older than me because the band had been around for a while. And so I did that. And then I moved to Chicago, and the keyboard player and I started a band, and that went pretty well. We were doing a lot of originals. I was writing a lot and those kind of things. And then, I did some other bands. And one time, I was with that group in Ohio.
Yeah.
And we ended up playing my county fair, where we're in my hometown outside St. Clair, right?
Uh-huh.
And it was huge. I mean, there were probably 10,000 people there because we opened for the Gatlin Brothers.
Oh my gosh!
And so when I was introduced, I heard, because they introduced me from St. Clair.
Yeah.
The crowd just roared.
Oh my gosh.
And I felt like a rock star.
Yeah, you were. You were famous.
It was before GPS.
Yeah.
They had this map book called the Thomas Guide that was about the size of a phone book. And you would go to and when you'd get your information where you're supposed to show up for the shoot, it would tell you the page of the Thomas Guide.
Yeah.
And then you turn to that page, that's where you knew where to go. I miss, like, being a kid. Not a kid, but in my teens.
Yeah.
And there were I'd go to St. Louis, there was huge record stores called Peaches. Peaches record stores. And you go in there and you find the album you were looking for. You bring it home and you take it out of the plastic and you'd read the album cover and the album notes and you put it on the turntable really gently and you crank that for the first time. And you play the whole album. You do every tune on the album, you know?
Yeah.
And we don't do that anymore. It's just like, I want to hear that song. Boom, I look it up.
Yeah.
Then it's diluted. It's made it harder, I think, to find the real cream, the real gems. But that's progress. I mean, that's the way the world is.
Yeah.
It just keeps moving forward. It's going to change. I went back after about 7 years. I thought, I probably need to, I was kind of at a crossroads. I just left a band and I thought, I don't want to do another band. What do I do now? So I went back to school and finished my degree. And I also picked up a psychology degree.
Oh.
And then I was kind of at this crossroads. I knew, I thought, I think I need to go get a master's. And I was torn between pursuing a PsyD, a psychology doctorate. And that degree, you counsel, but you also can prescribe meds.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, I was considering that very heavily, and I was accepted into a program in St. Louis. And then decided to get my master's in voice. So I went to Truman State up in Kirksville. That's where I got my master's degree.
Yeah.
And when that was wrapped, I started teaching at my alma mater, Culver Stockton College. I taught there for 3 years, and I started going to University of Iowa because I was on a tenure track position, and I had to get my doctorate.
Okay.
So I did my residence for a couple of years, and then I went to a big church gig in Peoria, Illinois, and I did that for 3 years.
Okay.
During that time, when I was in grad school and all that, my father passed.
Oh, wow.
And my mom and dad, right before he passed, had just moved to Springfield, Missouri. And I was up there in Peoria and Illinois, and I thought, I need to get down there. I just don't want to be that far away from Mom. I thought, Branson's right there, maybe, and I've got a few connections in Branson. Maybe I can get some work in Branson.
Yeah.
So that's and once I got down there, I had a really good success. I mean, 20 years doing shows, always had a show to do, well connected in the town. And then I played for Wayne Newton for a year and did his dates in Branson and Vegas and Atlantic City and all that. I actually was at a crossroads because I could have gone with him when he got his big Vegas contract at the Stardust.
Yeah.
But I chose to stay in Branson for family.
I see. Okay.
Okay. And so that was professionally, that's kind of what happened. And then, my Sight and Sound thing, I auditioned for Sight and Sound in Branson. I get the contract in the mail, and I'm looking at it, And I said, Lisa, I said, hey, this is not for Branson. This is for Pennsylvania.
Oh.
What do we do? So that happened, and the second year I was there, they started the conservatory, so I did a little teaching with that. And then we moved back, and now what I do now is I have a large church gig here in town at Missouri United Methodist Church. It's a very active church. We have a concert series. I've got 2 choirs.
Wow.
That kind of thing.
And you're teaching also, right?
Yeah, I have a private studio. I teach, and then I do a lot of gigs. I've really worked on my piano chops, and I do some like cocktail piano gigs and parties and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what my life looks like right now. But that's really just my professional life.
Yeah.
Not necessarily my personal life.
It sounds like things just took off for you. I mean, you were 21 when you hit the road for the first time, and that doesn't normally happen for people. Was there ever a time growing up when you thought, can I make a go of this? Is this really possible? Or even that your parents wondered if you could really make music a career?
Well, my parents were, they were always encouraging. I mean, sometimes like my mom especially, my dad was always very supportive, of course, and mom was very supportive, but her support came with the attachment of she wanted me really only in Christians. But I was always very close to my parents. I'm an only kid. One of the things, though, I've had such a diverse interest in music, and I play several instruments. But I sometimes, as I look back, I think, well, maybe if I would have just chosen one thing. Yeah. But I just loved all these different things. I like bluegrass music. I like jazz music. I like classical music. I like stage. So my interest and my professional experience is really diverse. But I think I would have really truly become an expert had I just chosen one, because every field is so competitive. Yeah. But like the only reason I got the Wayne Newton gig, which is a hard gig to get. Yeah. I was his utility guy. I played second keys. I played second trumpet on all the swing stuff. I sang tenor, and I did his vocal arrangements. Yeah. So I had enough tricks in the bag that he said, "Yeah, I'm going to use you." Right. My audition for him, I got the book from the keyboard player who was the music director. Yeah. And my audition was I was playing on stage with his band during a show. No rehearsal.
Wow.
Playing on stage with his band.
So I thought I would ask if you remember the first time you fell in love.
First time, I was 16.
16.
I was 16. Yeah, and I met this gorgeous girl. She was just like really stunning.
Was she at your high school?
No, I was from St. Clair High School. She was from Washington High School, about 13 miles away. Okay. And we were at all conference choir together. And we were playing Fish, the card game. I'd never met her before. But I thought, wow, that girl's good. She's pretty. And I didn't know this, but somebody through the grapevine said, hey, Paula Jones is really interested in you.
Oh, hey.
so I thought, I didn't think much about it. So that was in the fall. And then in the spring, we saw each other again at all district choir. And we had auditioned. And I said, hey, let's go for a walk.
Yeah. So that's a good one.
And I got her phone number, and I called her, and what was it? May 7th, 1976.
Oh, my gosh.
I asked her out. Or I didn't ask her out. That was our first date.
Okay.
We dated and were together for 4.5 years.
Oh, my gosh.
We actually went to college together. We both went to Culver Stockton. So I went to Culver Stockton with my girlfriend, who I I really loved, and at that time I thought I'd probably marry.
Mm-hmm.
And my best friend. We almost got married, but I think we were just not quite ripe enough in our maturity. Your first love is just so remarkable. Yeah. You've never experienced it before.
Yeah.
So, but that was my first love. Yeah, you know, and I didn't get married till I was almost 30.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first wife, Vicky. We were married 18 years. Wow. Lisa was married 20 years.
Okay.
And we ended up divorcing about a year apart. We had known each other from doing shows together. We'd done a couple of shows together. And then when we did go through our divorce, I didn't date really for about a year. Yeah. Almost a year. And then when Lisa and I started dating, we were both just friends because she'd
you already knew each other.
And I'd come out of it, and we just hang out and talk. Mm-hmm. But it just changed over time, and we began to feel closer, romantic toward each other. Mm-hmm. And the first time I asked her out, it was February 25th.
Okay.
And we always remember that date as our first date.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we just went out for dinner and dessert and talked and hung out, and really that's kind of how it started. It just kind of unwrapped as we went. Yeah,
your friendship developed and you fell in love. I think that's beautiful.
And then we eloped.
Oh wow! Okay.
So that's how that went down. I feel like, you know, no relationship's perfect, but I feel like ours is a good one. There have been 3 major life events that have really been difficult for me, and that's the loss of my dad, the divorce, and just a couple of years ago in July, the loss of my mom.
Yeah.
Those things have been, you know, life-changing, difficult events to work through.
Well, do you mind going into a little bit more description of each of those?
Not at all.
I mean, you were performing when your dad passed away. Was he ill, or what did that process look like?
Well, he had been ill. He died, and this has been something that's kind of been on my mind a bit. He died at my age, at the age I am now. Wow. So he died pretty young. He was 59, and he had heart disease. He had, open heart surgery like in his mid-40s.
Yeah.
And he never quite recovered from that. But Mom and Dad had retired, and they were moving to Springfield. That was my dad's hometown. Mm-hmm. So they moved on a Saturday, and he died on a Tuesday right after they moved.
Oh, my
goodness. Mom's in this new house in this new town after living 35 years in their home that they raised me in. And
wow.
Yeah. So that was really difficult. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and losing Mom had Alzheimer's. She went full circle with it. It was a difficult stretch. And now we're in that with Lisa's dad. And the fact that our parents, like Lisa's dad, my mom, we're terrified that we do not want any piece of that.
Yeah.
Met my first wife when I went back to college.
Okay.
After my road years, my 20-something road years. Mm-hmm. And it's devastating to end a long-term marriage, but it's terribly sad.
Yeah.
You feel everybody that's gone through it feels like failure. So that was that. And I'll be real honest with you.
Yeah.
It was drinking that kind of ruined that marriage.
Wow.
But now I've been sober for over 12 years.
Wow. So
that's been a battle.
Yeah. Well, but
I'm good. Like I said, 12 years, and I don't have that desire to drink, but it was hard to arrest that addiction. Drink it a little bit, and then drink a little more in college, and then like on the road.
Yeah.
I really hit it hard because that's just kind of what everybody did.
Yeah.
It was fun. Sure. I enjoyed it, but it got a little carried away. It's kind of like, I'll give you this detail, but it makes me feel like, and I'll explain why, but it makes me feel terrible. I had stopped drinking right about the time I met Vicky. Mm-hmm. And I didn't drink for 11 years.
Wow.
And then I thought, well, I could probably have some wine at dinner. But it just escalated. So I drank for about another 6 years. And during that time, it escalated and made for a poor home life. And it wasn't until pretty much right after the divorce.
Yeah.
I stopped that and have been clean ever since.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this about myself. I have bipolar disorder. I take meds. As long as my meds are tweaked and dialed in, I manage it pretty well. But every now and then they get out of whack.
Sure.
And they have to be readjusted, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And so that's a struggle. Sometimes that gets really funky for me.
Yeah.
I wasn't formally diagnosed till I was about 34, 35. It was right after my dad died. I went to a psychiatrist.
Oh, wow.
I get some counseling for that. And, I felt like I was depressed, obviously, because I lost my parents, situational parents. But as he began to unfold and ask me questions about myself, he felt like, well, there's not just a depression. There's a manic phase that we have to address too.
Was it in some way relieving to have the diagnosis and just to know that there was something further there, that it wasn't just, why can't I get a hold of this, or, why can't I control this on my own?
Right. Because everybody thinks that we all think, well, we should be able to control our emotions and be even and, just trust the Lord. Well, okay. But sometimes the Lord requires medicine. And some earthly help here too. I didn't want to accept that. But hey, it is what it is. Yeah. And I got to do what I got to do to manage it. Because I can keep it together. Sure. Keep it together when I'm out among people. But, then I have to have that letdown.
You turn off when you go home. We're all on when we're out in public and, in our workplaces and everything. But you turn off when you go home. So that is when stuff really, can fall apart.
Yeah. So, but I am better. I've had a rough time since my mom. I was very close to my mom. Yeah. And when you lose both parents, when both parents are gone, it just feels odd.
So do you feel like you've done what you wanted to do in, career-wise?
I think I feel like as I look back on it, I've never made a ton of money. And there's certainly careers I could have chosen that would have been more lucrative and more, stable. But I've really kind of liked my life for the most part. And liked my professional choices. Like we talked about earlier, I always kind of think, well, what would my life have been like had I not been so, diverse? Yeah. And I would have focused on the one that I was best at. Not that I even know what that is.
Yeah. What do you think you'd want it to be?
Probably. So as I look back, I think I wish I'd have really grabbed on and worked and poured everything into the piano. Yeah. Piano and not classical piano, commercial piano. Country, pop, jazz, that stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of think my favorite thing overall is playing in a band. Because when you're in a band, it can kind of become like a family. Yeah. Just kind of like a show. Like when you're in a dressing room for a year with the same 8, 10 people or 5 people or 3 people, whatever it is. Yeah. You really grow close to them.
Yeah. I have a little book that I kept some notes from conservatory and all that kind of stuff, but I don't really have very many theory notes, but what I do have is a whole little booklet of Timco quotes. Oh. And I would you're the kind of person that you drop these little, we'd call them, our class got to calling them Timco nuggets. And you just drop these little nuggets of wisdom and joy and just real enjoyment of what you do and encouraging us to do the same. And
well, that's awesome. And I'm happy. That makes me so pleased that you felt that way.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, life spins by quick. The more focused you can be, the soonest you can be that way, the better off, right?
Yeah. Are you curious about that book of Timco nuggets I mentioned in the interview? Keep an eye on the blog this week. I dug my notes out to share a few of them with you. Let me challenge you. Do you have an old teacher or mentor or anyone in your life you'd simply like to get to know better? Reach out to get in touch and try the prompt, "Tell me about the first time you fell in love." Here's the truth. Old memories are like party outfits. You only bring them out when a special occasion arises. I have a couple gorgeous dresses in my closet, but I rarely have an excuse to wear them. When we ask somebody to recall a story from an earlier version of themselves, we're treasuring their past. We're celebrating a lifetime of memories, creating this special occasion to bring them out again. Memories add color to who we are today. Why wouldn't we want to see that in others? Let me know what you find. A reminder for the new season, our podcast and blog go hand in hand. While the recorded conversations are right here, we're constantly sharing written stories over on our website, as well as bonuses like videos and pictures. In fact, you can submit your own. Check it out and find us on social media as well. Music for the show is by Nathan Hall, and artwork by Ashley Crutcher and Jenny Brewster. You can find our Patreon and other links in the show notes below. Thanks for listening to You Never Asked.